The oil and gas industry is a good business investment with very high returns if properly conducted under recommended regulations, standards and guidelines. But because of the complex and sensitive ecosystem and the interdependency on them by other environmental components, any activities attempting to alter or change one or more components of this ecosystem is highly likely to create adverse impacts. Geographical surveys have indicated that there are oil accumulations, especially under most of Uganda's protected areas in the Western Rift Valley. This has prompted drilling activities inside ecologically sensitive places, a move that has stirred up the environmental impact assessment debate.
One, we have limited the size of the area that is supposed to be encroached. Thereby, we're also making sure that it's only the small habitat that is disturbed. We are limiting the number of people. We are limiting, actually, we don't allow camps within the wildlife areas. So that one also contributes to the non-detriment of these wildlife species.
Before undertaking any exploration program, companies are required to carry out an environmental impact assessment and submit a report to the National Environmental Management Authority for approval. This is meant to minimize damage on biodiversity in the protected areas to avoid impairing the future of tourism.
Now, the AIA process, it's not just a one-off, it's a process that involves consultations with stakeholders, that is both government, community, and technical people who do the drilling work. All this is consolidated into a report, which then gives you what to follow, what to use like a Bible to do your monitoring and ensure that by the time the project is complete, the environmental risk is basically very minimal.
NEMA is the principal agency for monitoring environmental impacts and for coordination of management and protection of the environment. This means each oil investment must have an environmental impact assessment done. Although some stakeholders believe there are many critical issues that should be taken into account but which are ignored.
At the time when we were making the AIA, we couldn't think that we would have crocodiles moving even over 6 kilometers up to a drill site. And currently we are having those challenges. But now what we have done is to make sure that every mud pit has some barrier to prevent those small reptiles that keep on coming on to here.
The impact of oil activities in some protected areas, like at the Murchison Falls National Park, is noticeable and immediate. The quality of roads within the park has improved significantly. Other than wildlife, there are new attractions coming up. The drill rig is now a common sight standing tall above the green hills. Around-the-clock grinding noise from drilling activities here and the movement of huge trucks supplying equipment to the drill site have become a common sight.
At the moment, we're working with UA to support rehabilitation of access routes so that there are new access routes where tourists can actually see further the vast beauty of the national park.
Of course, when it comes to managing noise, you start from the equipment itself. So the drilling teams do have maintenance schedules to ensure that at least they minimize the noise.
So this level of noise, as much as we try as much as possible to minimize on the noise within the park so that they don't disturb the animals, are actually approved levels by NEMA.
Disposal of waste materials from oil drilling activities continues to be a challenge to both government and the oil companies, which lack the capacity to manage the toxic drill waste. They largely rely on other lead agencies like the Petroleum Exploration and Production Department and Uganda Wildlife Authority.
We monitor the transportation, we do monitor the final disposal areas, and actually for those waste that are hazardous, we actually mandatory request for a delivery invoice from those licensed handlers.
So what we are doing is we get these cuttings and contain them after some time. So that we wait until we come up with a sustainable solution that we and government can agree with that we will use to treat these cuttings. But most of the mud can be kept in the tanks, then it's reused up to a certain level in the next well. And the same happens with the water. And we brought that up as an initiative to reduce on the amount of water we take up, reduce on the amount of mud we are using, because the more mud we use is the more waste we produce.
Once drilling is done, oil companies are required to restore the site to its original form. The drill rig is decommissioned and moved to a new site. Here at the Makshan Falls National Park, the whaleheads have been caged and covered with soil and vegetation planted above. The ant-hill-like structures have become play areas for wild animals which roam the plains of the park. Over 70% of all the oil wells have been drilled within protected areas. Even when several interventions have been put in place by Uganda Wildlife Authority and other institutions of government, it's not yet clear what might happen once production starts.
So it wouldn't be wise for us to just bring up hot plates of pipelines moving around this place. So we are planning to still stay in harmony with these animals.
Then too, we are insisting on subsurface structures. All the oil well heads, all the pipelines, all the nodding donkeys are all going to be subsurface structures.